When I pull up into a campground or a van life event, I get a lot of strange looks, especially when the vans around me are big RVs or the big Sprinters or Ford Transits. People say things like, "How adorable, but how do you function in such a tiny space?" Or they say, "Cute, but way too small. Why don't you get a bigger van?" So today I will tell you exactly why I chose my tiny van and why I haven't regretted it for a minute. It's rainy outside today, so I guess it's as good a time as any to talk about why I chose such a tiny van for van life. Number one, cost for the van and for the build. When I started looking for what type of vehicle I wanted for van life, I probably spent over a year researching different types of vehicles and watching all sorts of videos to try to imagine what van life would be like for me. I saw the videos that we all see with the back doors flung open wide and people laying out on their beautiful beds with a beautiful scene behind them or in front of them. But after the illusion of it wore off, I started to ask the more practical questions like, how much would a van like that cost? How much is a typical build for something like that? How long would it take to build it out? What about insurance, gas price, mileage? And then I thought about my own reality. Did I really want to spend what I could basically spend on a mortgage for a vehicle that I really wasn't sure I would be spending more than just a few years in? Because at that time, I knew that I liked the lifestyle because I'd converted an SUV that I owned into a temporary camper van and gone out several times to see if it was something that I could do. And I could, but I just couldn't justify spending a lot of money for something I didn't know would be long-term or temporary. So I switched gears and started looking for options that would be a little more budget-friendly. And that's when I saw the mini cargo vans, like the Ram Pro Master City, the Ford Transit Connects, the Mercedes Metris, and the Nissan NV200s. The main attraction for me was the price point because they were a lot less expensive. And I mainly searched on cars.com because it allowed me to put certain parameters in it, like the kind of mileage that I was looking for, the year, cost, and then you would get in your email feed every day something that matched those things that you were looking for. And actually, when this van popped up, I almost passed it over because it was red. And at that time, I had in my mind that I wanted to be all stealthy and everything, and white vans were supposed to be the best for that. So I literally almost scrolled by it. And I have the long story of how I changed my mind and all the things that went into that. But this van checked all of the boxes that I was looking for, and there were some real out of the ordinary things that happened that also led me to buy it. The actual cost for this van was $6,995, and it had 69,000 miles on it when I bought it. It had only had one previous owner, and it was an older, it's a 10, but I liked the shape of it because after 2013, they stopped building them with this extra little bit of height, which does make a difference, I think. And then I built it out. It was more of a no-build build, but that cost me just under $1,600, and I've shown a video about that too somewhere else. But it took me a little over a month to build it out as well. So for me, cost was definitely one of the reasons I chose this van. Another reason I chose this van is fuel economy. The average gas mileage on a Ford Transit Connect is from 25 to 27 miles per gallon on the highway, and I often got upwards of 30. So that was a real advantage, and a simple Google search will show you that Ford Transit Connects have one of the best miles per gallon for small cargo work vans, and it boasts best in class for fuel economy at 25.5 miles per gallon. The gas mileage of larger cargo vans can really vary depending on the model and the type of engine it has, but GMCs, for instance, like the Savannah 1500 gets 14 miles per gallon in the city and 17 on the highway. A larger Ford Transit averages about 14.48 miles per gallon, and a Mercedes Sprinter gets between 14 and 20 miles per gallon, depending on driving conditions and how much cargo is in the van. So also how much you weigh after your build plays a huge part in how much gas mileage you get afterwards. So that is why I chose to keep things light and airy and as little real weight as possible. So for me, with the way gas prices are, fuel economy was really one of the big factors why I opted for a tiny van. Another consideration for me was maneuverability. I do have experience driving larger vehicles, but the idea of city streets and public parking and the washboarded dirt roads that you have to drive over sometimes when you're going into the boonies just made me think twice about that. In my tiny van, I can fit through car washes, drive-throughs, public parking, and even in parking garages. Recently, I had to go to meetings in Washington, D.C., and the whole time I was there, I parked in a public parking garage. And because it has front-wheel drive, it handles really well in dirt and sand and snow. And coming from where I did, where there's a lot of snow, actually the fact that it had front-wheel drive was the factor why I chose a Ford Transit Connect over any of the other small cargo vans, and even the larger ones. I think the Ram ProMaster is the only other one that has front-wheel drive. Another reason why Ford won out over Mercedes or Nissan was the cost for repair and maintenance. And I looked it up because I wanted to make sure that I was saying something that was true. But on average, the total annual cost for repairs and maintenance on a Ford Transit Connect is about $740 compared to $1,016 for a Mercedes-Benz Metris and $795 for a Ram ProMaster City. Only the Nissan NV200 costs less, with an average being about $645. For larger cargo vans, the average annual maintenance costs were between like $900 and $1,700. So that was a large factor. But as far as repairs and parts goes, Ford tends to have a lot of dealerships all over the country, and a decent availability of parts, because these vehicles have been on the road for a while. Even though they've been discontinued since, there are parts available, and people who are willing to work on Fords all around the country as well. And that varies a lot and may be a little subjective because I really don't have statistics on it. I couldn't find them comparing other vans to what I've experienced. But I have pretty much been able to get my van serviced and repaired everywhere I've been in the country. And I've heard from others that it has been very difficult to repair and service their vehicles when they've got especially a Mercedes or Ram. Nissans are also a little bit difficult when it comes to the availability of parts and people who are able to work on them and repair them. So that is purely anecdotal, so don't get me in the comments or anything like that. But I have found it to be true that Ford has been pretty easy for me to find anywhere. I was in Arizona and I had the back door just totally come off almost. I mean, it got the hinge ruined and it wouldn't shut. And the next day, I was in a repair shop that was able to take it and repair it instantly. So I was back on the road in a matter of hours. And if you have been following Bunny, you know that she has been waiting for repairs to happen on the back doors of her Nissan NV200. So that is, again, a little anecdotal, but it may actually speak to something that you have to consider when you're looking for a van. Tiny vans do have some drawbacks, like I can't stand up in it and very limited storage. And, well, mainly those are the drawbacks that I can see. But lack of storage for me has really just forced me to consider what is really necessary for me to live comfortably. And I have found that I really value experiences more than things. So that I would count actually as a positive rather than a drawback. And not being able to stand just makes me have to get outside more and enjoy all the adventures that I can. So I hope you can see why choosing a tiny van really made sense for me. Maybe it helps you as you consider what choice is right for you, but I have not regretted for a minute the choice to have such a small van for my tiny home on wheels. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.